So the LAPD is asking for even more money in 2018 for programs that don't benefit the community. One thing being requested is money for public surveys, $600,000. But when the public responds to those surveys, we see how responses get twisted to justify what the LAPD wants to do. For example, the November 2016 bias policing survey, when the public responded with how they feel about the police, and then in the report it was decided that people only perceived that police were biased. And those results were used to justify putting more officers into neighborhoods to increase people's exposure to police. Then with the drone vote, we saw how the process of gathering public opinion was just going through the motions and checking a box. So $600,000 for more surveys is pretty useless. A more concerning item on the budget, however, is the expansion of predictive policing and laser. When predictive policing relies on assumptions that are flawed and also relies on information being gathered and parsed constantly from communities and surveilling them in ways that inflict harm to them. One assumption of predictive policing is that the data cannot be biased. However, the data is based on stops, arrests, calls for service, and we know that all of those are racially biased. People who observe a crime have to decide whether or not to report it. People who are making an arrest, the officers, they have to decide whether or not they're making that arrest. We know that racism plays a role in each of those steps. In the LA Times, an analysis of who gets arrested for pot, for example, they found that 40% of those folks arrested were black, although black and white folks use pot at about the same rate. So the reports and trends that predictive policing and laser are built on, that's all racist data. Then the this investment, in predictive policing, which has been going on since 2011, is a further investment in tactics that profile and intentionally harm Black and brown communities. These are the types of programs that harm youth in groups that Liberty Hill directly supports. So if you're voting on these programs and expanding these programs and funding these programs, then you're voting for racist policing and tactics and policies that further harm Black and brown communities.
George, please.
You don't even understand what you're voting on. That's what you're funding, is racist policing tactics.